Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around we had Father's Day. What was that one about?
Well, that is one of the classic, you can't go back in time and interrupt because it will create all sorts of horrible problems. Rose decides she wants to find out what happened to her father, who apparently died after she was born, but before she ever got to know him. She remembers all the stories that her mom told, and then she goes back in time and finds out that wasn't the way it was, and she decides to save him from the car accident that killed him, and that creates not just all sorts of ripples in time, but these creatures called the Reapers who come in and literally start destroying the world. And that's when even the Doctor disappears at one point, and Rose's father realizes that he's the only person who can set it right. So he literally goes out and allows the accident to happen, which kills him, which resets the timeline, and everything's okay. Again, very well-written episode, even though, again, that is a time travel story that almost all time travel stories are based on. But they took it in kind of a new direction.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really good episode, good character episode for Rose. It is interesting, especially after the long game where you had Adam and what was her name, Kathika, and the Doctor was really pointing out all the good things about Rose. You know, she's asking the right questions, she's useful, all this stuff, and then just immediately after that, she's the one who screws up time, and he's just like, okay, I came up to bat for you, but
what did he call her? Something
a stupid ape.
Stupid ape.
Yeah. So, but all is mostly forgiven. I mean, it's the Doctor's not the kind of guy that will hold that over her. So, luckily, she learned her lesson, and time was pretty much resolved anyway. So, it all vaguely works out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's where we left off. Today we're moving on to The Empty Child. We have 5 more episodes left of this season. That's pretty much
5 or 4.
Oh, it's 5. The last episode is on its own disc, along with the first Christmas special that we'll be watching. So, I don't really have too much else going into this. You got anything?
I got nothing. We will open Charlie's Aunt next Friday, which is August 23rd. So you guys are seeing this after we've already opened. So hopefully it'll have all gone well.
Yeah. So, that's pretty much that.
That's
so
it.
We might as well jump right into this episode of Doctor Who. Here we go.
Wherever it goes, we go.
And as safe as it?
Okay, reasonably. Should have said reasonably there.
Theme sounds a little different. Maybe it isn't, but it sounds a little different.
Maybe.
Seems like the bass is a little louder. I was going to say, could be London anytime from the 1850s to modern times.
5 days? How much is a little?
A bit.
Is that exactly a bit?
Ish.
What's the plan then? You gonna do a scan for alien tech or something?
Rose, it hit the middle of London with a very loud bang. I'm gonna ask. What do you think?
I think you should do a scan for alien tech. Give me some Spock. For once, would it kill ya?
You sure about that t-shirt?
I was going to say,
I'd say I'm taking it out for a spin.
this is a very 1920s vibe.
Are you alright up there?
Oh, Rose, you should know better by now.
Go up there and kick it.
But has anything fallen from the sky recently?
Of course, if this is the 20s, then airplane flight is very recent in Great Britain, so that's why that would seem even more unusual.
Would have landed quite near here
1940s?
with a very loud...
Quickly as you can, down to the ship.
Oh, so it is the 40s.
Should have done the scan for alien tech.
And she was in gymnastics, so I guess she can do that.
Oh, Rose, it's not too late to let go. Alright, now it's too late. Oh, Rose, what have you done this time?
Okay, maybe not this t-shirt.
Battle of Britain.
Just one day, maybe. I'm going to meet somebody who gets the whole don't wander off thing. What's that about? Ringing? What am I supposed to do with a ringing phone?
Don't answer it. It's not for you.
That's what most people feel like when someone calls them.
It's not even a real phone. It's not connected. It's not...
Okay, Batman. It's weird because he has a phone in the TARDIS. Why wouldn't he connect it out here?
Arthur! Arthur, will you hurry up? Did you hear the siren? We're looking at every night. Blooming Germans, don't they eat? Oh, I can hear the planes! Don't you eat! Oh, keep your voice down!
I mean, like, try to tie yourself on or something.
Excellent bottom.
Say, old man, there's a time and a place.
Sorry, old man.
Oh.
I gotta go meet a girl. But you got an excellent bottom, too.
Now, I have only heard of this exponential, or outside of normal channels, but that's Captain Jack, isn't it?
Yeah.
Art's still carving. Sit and wait. Got the whole air
Artful
range.
Dodger.
Were you expecting me to faint or something?
Hey, you look a little dizzy.
What about you? You're not even focused.
Tie your shoe later.
Thanks, miss. Thank you, miss.
Thanks, miss.
It's alright. Everybody stay where they are.
Good here, innit? Who's got the salt?
You're not the only one who's like Batman in here.
Feeding frenzy for the homeless kids of London town. Puddings for all. As long as the bombs don't get you.
Something wrong with that?
Wrong with it? It's brilliant. I'm not sure if it's Marxism in action or a West End musical.
Why'd you follow me?
And I want to find a blonde in a Union Jack. I mean a specific one. I didn't just wake up this morning with a craving.
Now, go, move!
Come on, baby, we've got to go, alright?
It's just like a game, just like chasing.
Take your coat, go.
You know, this is the second time people have had to quickly leave this table, and none of them have bothered to take food with them. Everyone's got that disappearing trick down.
I've been expecting one of you guys to show up. Though, not I must say by barrage balloon. Do you often travel that way?
Sometimes I get
American would say barrage. It's also interesting that one of the characters in Oliver is also named Nancy, and she's the one helping take care of all the Artful Dodgers companies.
How'd you follow me here?
I'm good at following me. Got the nose for it.
People can't usually follow me if I don't want them to.
My nose has special powers.
Yeah? That why it's so.
What?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing. Juries have special powers too.
What are you trying to say?
Good night, mister. I'm sure you want to know what's going on in there.
I really want to know.
And there's someone you need to talk to first.
And who might that be?
The doctor.
Okay.
So this companion of yours, does he handle the business?
Well, I delegate a lot of that, yeah.
Or maybe we should go find him.
And how are you going to do that?
Easy. I'll do a scan for alien tech.
Finally, a professional.
Yeah, but it's not as fun.
Amazing.
What is?
1941. Right now, not very far from here, the German war machine is rolling up the map of Europe. Country after country, falling like dominoes. Nothing can stop it. Nothing. Until one tiny, damp little island says, no. You're amazing, the lot of you. Don't know what you do to Hitler. You frighten the hell out of me.
Couldn't really tell. Do they all have on gas masks?
By the following morning, every doctor and nurse who had treated him, who had touched him, had those exact same injuries. By the morning after that, every patient in the same ward, the exact same injuries. Within a week, the entire hospital. Physical injuries as plague.
What was the cause of death?
There wasn't one. They're not dead.
It's all right.
You, my mummy.
Ew. You got there at the right time.
It's a real pleasure to meet you, Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock?
What was I supposed to say? You don't have a name. Don't you ever get tired of Doctor? Doctor who?
9 centuries in, I'm coping. Where have you been? We're in the middle of a London blitz. It's not a good time for a stroll.
You strolling? I went by barrage balloon. Only way to see an air raid.
What?
Listen, what's a tuna warship?
What kind of warship?
Does it matter? It's got nothing to do with this.
This started at the bomb site. It's got everything to do with it. What kind of warship?
An ambulance! It's a con. I was conning you, that's what I am. I'm a con man. Thought you were time agents. You're not, are you?
Just a couple more freelancers.
Ah, should have known. Well, you guys are blending in with the local color. I mean, Flag Girl was bad enough, but U-boat captain? Anyway.
Oh no, it has door powers now.
See? Your sister. Dead, Jamie. You're dead.
Mommy. Mommy.
Two-parter?
Two-parter.
Thought they weren't supposed to do that anymore.
Nope, we get a number of them each season.
Oh.
So
I thought you had said that the Aliens of London and World War III were the only two-parter.
oh well, I don't know. It didn't matter.
No.
But yeah, that's part one of our two-parter. And I know there are a lot of people that want us to do both parts in the same video. Maybe in the future, maybe. But honestly, especially right now, it's like I'd rather just sort of stick to the one a week.
Yeah.
So,
Now, and I will say this about the format, though. Although this is very well written, it's got an incredibly slow pace.
yeah.
You know, for the amount of things that have happened, that really should have only taken up half an hour, and they padded it out to, 45? I don't want to say it's padded, because there was nothing specifically padded, but they have certainly slowed the pace down, considering that they're literally in the middle of a raid where everything should be hyperactive. It's all just a little too mellow for what they were trying to do, I think.
There's
I
definitely,
love the episode, but it's just weird.
I mean, it definitely plays with that more with the horror aspect to it. And this is our first episode written by Stephen Moffat, who would later become the showrunner, who also did the Curse of Fatal Death. that episode. So, and especially in this era, because he'll do a couple more episodes before he becomes showrunner. Early on, he definitely went for more of the horror aspect in his episodes than pretty much any other writer, and it definitely shows here. Just that slow, creeping atmosphere. Yeah. You know, this night that never seems to end during the London Blitz. So
now, did Moffat also work with Mark Gatiss on Sherlock?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were both the co-showrunners of Sherlock. Trying to think if there was anything else he's done that we've seen. I don't think so. Still, I mean, it's such an interesting episode, and they do kind of get away with it, because I would say probably the padding that they do is probably just introducing Jack. You know, it's like on its own, you know, you have the doctor, he's trying to figure this stuff out, and then Rose is, you know, separated, but they kind of fill in those scenes with introducing Captain Jack Harkness. Now, things have changed since I first watched this episode, and I believe about a year or two back, John Barrowman did get canceled. Not for anything. I don't know. It's weird to say there are degrees of cancellation. I don't think that's actually a thing, but like, it's not. I don't know. Whatever. I guess what I can say is the stuff he was canceled for is not nearly as bad as the stuff that the actor that plays Mickey was canceled for. So Mickey was way worse, and we've already just kind of gone past that and just like, all right, and here's Mickey, you know? Yeah. So before anyone says anything, which I don't know if anyone would, I just want to kind of get past this in case, just in case, but we will separate that and we will just enjoy the performance and the character, because there's a lot to enjoy with Jack Harkness.
I'm totally unaware of what he's talking about here, so leave me out of this.
Yeah, pretty much. So
now, again, the thing is, during the last 10-15 minutes when he was talking with the doctor there in Albion Hospital, there were no bombs. You know, you didn't hear the explosions in the background. So if the air raid was over, we should have seen London coming back to life as, you know, people came out, and of course the firemen were putting out the fires, and the people were, you know, finding out if their homes were still there. So it's just it's the juxtaposition of, you know, all's quiet here, nothing's happening. It doesn't make logical sense in the aftermath of the air raid. But again, that's minor. A lot of people probably never noticed that. I only noticed it again because, you know, having lived in England, having heard stories of the Blitz from people who lived through it, it's just, you know, it's kind of unusual that, and again, I realize they're just trying to emphasize the spookiness of it, but that was a little bit jarring to me. I was kind of like, wait a minute, there was no all clear sounds, you know, and so anyway, minor point.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting just how quickly they put you into this era, you know, in London. It's like, you know, you go in to the not speakeasy, because they didn't really need those in London, but you go into the
jazz club.
Yeah, you go into the jazz club, and it's like, okay, so this is kind of back in time, unless this is 2005 and they're just really aesthetic in this place for some reason. But then you kind of go through and you start hearing the siren, and you look and it's like, okay, now it's the 40s, you know, and then you start getting that. You get probably a little too close to the Blitz, because Rose, I don't know how this happened, but Rose, you know, ends up being caught on a balloon. So, and then, you know, putting it in, seeing the family that's there, and, you know, going in and getting the food. It's like everything just puts you into that atmosphere, on top of it being the dead of night, and, you know, and just sort of adding to the spookiness, you know? So, and that is one thing too. It's like, as much as it does sort of put you into the air raid, it also doesn't, it doesn't really, like, affect anyone. Like, everyone's just kind of going around unimpeded. It's not like, oh, a bomb, dropped, 2 houses over. Well, now we should get out of here or anything. So the most is the child, Jamie, going around and like scaring Nancy and the other kids and stuff. So, but we have our mystery of what happened to Jamie. And why is this affecting everyone else? So
now, I did think of something, and I thought maybe they would mention it. Because Jack has parked his spaceship next to Big Ben, I think it was, and again, I'm just going off of a very vague memory here, that Big Ben was never hit during World War II. That despite all these other places in London being totally leveled, it never sustained any major damage. I was wondering if they were going to say, yes, I can tell you, that Big Ben never got hit because my spaceship has a force field around it or something like that. So that was just a little thing that would help explain. And I don't think the Germans specifically said, we're not going to do that. Because, that's part of the terror campaign. You want to knock down all the British institutions, all the landmarks, to essentially force the British into realizing they can't win, which of course they end up doing. And sadly, the Americans would, I can't remember, I think it was either late 1944 or 1945, and again, it may have been with the help of the RAF, but the U.S. Army Air Corps leveled the city of Dresden in a firebombing. First of all, came in basically and blew up most of the buildings into kindling, and then firebombed the place so that the whole town literally was burned to the ground.
Yeah,
that's recounted, by the way, in Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, which is one of my favorite novels.
And that's the thing. It's like that sort of that seeding of terror. It's like that does happen just so much, especially now that humans have learned how to fly. So they do that in London. They retaliate, do it in Germany. America did that in Japan, towards the end of the war, with multiple ways, with the very big and obvious ways, and also with like the firebombing of Tokyo. And then because it's one of those things, like, you think about it and it's like, well, America never had that in World War II, and it's like, no, but then around just past the turn of the century, that ended up happening in America anyway. So it's that moment of hitting that close to home. So, and I guess maybe you could even argue Pearl Harbor was also kind of like that. So,
Pearl Harbor was more of a strategic strike. Yeah. The Japanese High Command knew that the United States Pacific Fleet was stationed there, and they were assuming that by wiping out the entire Pacific Fleet, that would prevent the Americans from joining the war. And even though they did substantial damage, they did not damage all the ships, because all the ships weren't at Pearl Harbor on December 7th. And again, somebody just very recently reminded me of a quote, I think it's about the American election and the whole cat lady controversy, that it is reported that one of the Japanese admirals, when he was told that the forces had bombed Pearl Harbor, he said, "I'm afraid what we've done is awaken a sleeping giant who will now come back to us with a vengeance," or words to that effect.
Yeah. And that is also the thing, not to go off on a whole on a whole analysis of World War II, but it is the thing of we stayed out of that for a while.
Yes.
And so the fact is, even though we were helping, with the Allies and everything, we still were in relatively good shape. And not only did we, and we basically just joined two sides of the war. So, defeating Germany and Hitler, and then turning around and being like, okay, now that we've done that, now let's go over here. And the British, wasn't it that the British couldn't really join the war in the Pacific because they were kind of spent?
Yeah.
So wasn't that? I think that was the thing that Churchill tried to inspire the British to go over to Japan, and the British were like, we can't. They're good. They can handle this. They do that. We'll rebuild.
But again, the initial entry of the United States into the war, aside from Japan, now, again, it's been years since I've talked about this. My impression, my understanding was that Churchill talked to FDR and said, you cannot bring the Americans over and try to invade Europe first. He said, first of all, we should take out the Germans in Africa. So that's that whole North African campaign, chasing Rommel and all that. Then from there, they crossed the Mediterranean to Sicily and then into Italy and knocked Italy out of the war first. This would have been about 42 or 43 at the latest. And then from there, they got fighting Germany on the southern side, and then in 44, the British and the Americans and the Australians, all the other allies land on the Normandy beaches, and from there they move in, and of course the Russians move in from the east. So, yeah, as much as the United States would have preferred to start fighting in the Pacific, the fact was the Pacific Fleet was badly crippled.
Yeah.
And it made more sense. Churchill had already been in the war for 2 years, and he had basically, I mean, the fact that he had kept Britain afloat at that point, the FDR literally just said, okay, you know what you're doing, I will follow your lead. So.
Yeah, so. Anywho. And back to Doctor Who.
And if we have accidentally misrepresented any kind of British participation there, that's, simply because we're Americans. But, thumbs up. What the British did, again, not only against the Nazis and the fascists and Japan, but also what they did against Napoleon, what they did against the Spanish in 1588. Just Great Britain, like the United States, had a huge advantage over all of the other European countries. They had their own resources, they had navigable rivers, the Industrial Revolution essentially started there, and they were an island. And no matter how hard Napoleon or Hitler or any other European monarch or fascist or dictator wanted to do it, trying to invade an island like that proved to be impossible for all of them. The last person to do it was William the Conqueror in 1066. So, I mean, kudos.
Yeah, so. But anywho. So, I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm looking at my notes. It's like, and I wrote down everything, but it's like, what fully to talk about. I mean, because we have the mystery, the lingering mystery of what happened to Jamie, and why this is happening, why it's spreading to all these people, why they're getting the same injuries, and they're getting the mask fused onto their face and everything. I don't know. It's a very interesting kind of slow burn mystery, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Jack mentioned the word plague, so. And he said it was an ambulance, a hospital ship, whatever. So it may have been something that had been isolated because it was a plague and accidentally crashed on Earth, or he crashed it on Earth. I'm not exactly sure how that all will resolve itself in the next episode. But the fact is, it's something that is obviously carried by contact. It's not like you breathe it in. And there's all sorts of other ways of catching diseases, but this is a very specific, you have to actually have physical contact with the flesh of a human being for it to spread. So
yeah, so for the other stuff, I mean, it is just interesting, seeing, like we said, seeing life within the Blitz. I like seeing the family just sort of, in their own time, heading to the bomb shelter. The mother's trying to get the kid in there fast, and the guys, he's got his hands in his pocket, he's just strolling around. It's like, don't you eat? And he just goes and heads on in. So, I mean, there is a part of me that's thinking, like, okay, if I had just sat down to eat and those sirens go off, I'm taking, I'm filling up my plate and taking it with me. Yeah. Like, even not, and that's not even anything about, like, oh, well, what if someone comes in and tries to eat my food while I'm in the bomb shelter? It's like, no, I'm hungry. I'm not going to stop eating just because the Germans are here. So, like, I would at least take the food with me. You can't take all the food from this gigantic feast that this family had.
Which, again, I think Nancy or somebody made the comment about, you don't get this with coupons, you don't get this with rationing. So this family had to be wealthier than the average people, because it looked like they were eating, I guess it was a ham, and then they had, the rolls and everything else on the table. So, and it seemed like it had been set for like 8 people, but only 3 people went into the shelter.
Yeah, it was a family of 3 with a very, very good meal. I mean, and they mention it's like he must have gotten this on the black market, you know? So it's interesting, just that, and that doesn't really go anywhere, but it's just like this interesting little, like, I wonder what you get a little bit of that, I guess, world building in war building, I guess.
It's like Robin Hood. Yeah, I was thinking, again, I've mentioned the whole Fagin and Artful Dodger and Oliver connection there, but she's really a Robin Hood, you know?
Yeah.
These people have obviously got more than they need, so we're just going to relieve them of some of that to help the kids who need it.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's also interesting with this episode just seeing, like, the difference between the Doctor and Jack. Like, this kind of has a deconstruction of, and not even like a very in-depth deconstruction, but just sort of breaking down, like, okay, how does the Doctor go about his business, you know? And just the obvious, you know, Jack will scan for alien tech. That's how he can easily find the Doctor. And the Doctor is just like, well, just go around and ask, you know? Like, he doesn't want to do all these fancy, crazy things that Rose wants him to do, which is funny. But it's interesting because, like, you kind of show both sides of that. You know, Jack, he can get to where he needs to go because he was able to find the Doctor, but the Doctor has figured out way more of this situation just by going around basically being a detective, you know? And I like that. It is one of those things I kind of think about, like, classic Doctor Who, where it's like, I don't know, and I'm sure this was in many episodes, I'm just obviously not remembering it, but, like, it's nice to see more of the Doctor just sort of going around, figuring things out. Like, we just don't know everything yet. Yeah. And there are a lot of times in classic Doctor Who where, yeah, we didn't know anything, we just didn't know what on earth was going on. But, you know, a lot of times it would be like you're just kind of thrown into a story, and then the story just kind of happens, and it's a good thing that the Doctor is there to resolve it, but at the same time, it's like, it's just some sort of weird story we just sort of stumbled into, where here, it is this sort of mystery building. You know, he's trying to find the cylinder. He didn't know it's an ambulance yet, and one thing leads to another until he's finally on this case of, you know, Jamie and what's happened to all these people. So
I noticed there was also a nice little throwback, and it's, if I recall correctly, it's only about like the third or fourth time since 1963 where somebody says, you call yourself the Doctor, Doctor Who.
Yeah. And that's another part of it. Just, you know, Rose just trying to figure out a name for him. And it's just like, you know, what am I supposed to tell him? You don't have a name. It's one of those things, like, everyone just so quickly accepts he's just the Doctor, and that's it. But yeah, it's just like, how do you say that? Like, if you understand it, and then you find I'm going to put in quotes, normal person, because Jack, I don't know if he really qualifies as a normal person, but you tell that to a normal person, and it's just like, oh, that sounds stupid. I'm just saying, it's like, he's the Doctor. I don't know, does that count as a name? I don't know. So, it is also interesting seeing some of Jamie's powers, like, you know, the fact that he was able to just sort of close that door with a finger point, but they make a special note of the fact that he can sort of control speakers, you know, so he can call phones even if they're not hooked up, and he can, you know, tap into these radio waves.
Now, minor thing, he closed the door on Nancy, but he couldn't open the door before when he was sticking his hand through the mail slot.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, like, I guess because that door was locked, I suppose Nancy had just locked that door, but I don't know, like, we don't get a full detail of, like, what Jamie's powers are, you know, at this point. So, and, like, how, because I mean, we still don't even know what it is at this point. So how did this thing happen to him? He should be dead. His heart isn't beating, you know, his chest has collapsed, and, like, everything, he's not even really breathing, and all of them are like that, but for some reason they're still alive. So I guess that's about all I got.
Yep.
You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then that is pretty much that. I also noticed it's nice that they don't have a preview for the next episode on here, which is interesting. You would think that there would be, like, you know, a next time, you know, see what's going to happen in part 2, but they just completely forego that. At least here on the DVD. I don't know if it was like that on broadcast or anything, but it's just kind of nice. So yeah, next time we will get to part 2 of this story. But that is basically it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.